following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers from around the world. It's time for another edition of the Flat Earth Files. As we're recording on this Sunday evening, May 14th, 2023. Hope everybody is off to a good week. As we're recording, it's actually Sunday night. This is actually getting released Wednesday night at 8 p.m. So this is at least midweek for you guys if you're listening as it's being released. And again, I hope everybody is being well. Thank you for the continued support. Don't forget the website. It's been hopping, a lot of information in the forum and in the chat room. Don't be a stranger. Drop on by. Again, it is theflatearthfiles.com. Again, it's theflatearthfiles.com. I've had a lot of requests to add a page to the website and to link many of the videos that we talk about. I get a lot of questions, and I will refer people to videos because it's a lot easier to say, hey, this video kind of explains what I think, instead of trying to answer, like, there's some very difficult questions to answer in the form of an email. So I was hoping to this weekend, but obviously a little busy, but I will hopefully by midweek, hopefully by the time this podcast drops, have that added to the website. And then if there are certain videos that you think would benefit the masses, shoot me an email with a link, and we'll get it on the website to benefit everybody. So we'll make it a one-stop destination for knowledge and, having a conversation with like-minded people. And also, don't forget, drop us an email. It is theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. If you would like to join the program like Kevin from Wyoming is tonight, again, it's theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. We are currently setting up our June schedule. Don't forget, we'll be on a little bit of a hiatus from Memorial Day weekend till about the end of the first week of June. But I think I'm going to try to schedule it so you don't notice it too much. We're going to just drop 2 a week and space them out here on out, just so you don't have a dry well for a week to 10 days. So you won't really notice that we're on hiatus. Very shortly, we'll be booking for July because I'm just about booked for June. So if you'd like to come on, start sending those emails now. So there you go, the Flat Earth Files at gmail.com. All right, joining us tonight from the great state of Wyoming is Kevin. He reached out to us a few weeks ago, and he is full of knowledge, biblical knowledge, and is a big 9/11 truther as well. And we'll get to that a little later, but let's welcome Kevin to the show. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Really excited for this. Hey, everybody. Just thank you for having me on too, George. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. We had a little conversation beforehand, and I think we're going to have just a tremendous podcast. If you will, introduce yourself to the folks.
I'm Kevin. I live in Wyoming. Lived in Wyoming all my life. I'm 32 this year. Have a wife, 1-year-old daughter. Just thankful to be alive in these times. It's kind of crazy with everything going on, especially things that have happened within the past 20 years, even when I was 10. It's and then just figuring out things like baby step by baby step. And that's kind of all I can say, is that it just takes baby steps to figuring out this stuff, because there's so many questions out there, and it's hard to find what's real and what's not. So just been a truth seeker for a little bit, been a Christian my whole life, and just trying to discern what's real and go by God's word to see where it leads me.
Indeed, you have to crawl before you can walk, and I think that resonates with the truth community as well. Once you start going down a rabbit hole and you become kind of a new truther, you immediately want all the answers right away. But I think, and you may feel the same way, I think there's a certain order of truth, because it can be overwhelming if you realize, like if somebody would have thrown flat earth at me right after Iraq and 9/11, I think it would have been too much. I think easing your way into certain truths and allowing the rabbit holes to connect, because that's how it really worked for me. I went deep down into 9/11, and that really connects with so many other rabbit holes. And then as you go down to the other ones, it's just, it's really a big spider web is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. 9/11 was my, like I spoke to you in the pre-interview, 9/11 is kind of like my baby, with the way that everything conspired, and the way it's kind of a funny story, actually. Me and my family were on vacation in Hawaii in 2000 and I want to say 2011, 2012. I can't remember the exact year, but when it was at night, we kind of just started to relax in our condo and flipping through the channels, and all of a sudden there was this documentary about 9/11. And it wasn't one of the typical documentaries. It was one that was kind of exposing the truth of 9/11. And I didn't find that odd in the time. I found it odd right now with them, broadcasting that on television back then. But a lot of the stuff they were saying made quite a bit of sense. So that's when I would say that my eyes were opened to kind of the deceptions of the world, the mainstream media, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where my journey began, was just, sitting in a condo in Hawaii on vacation, seeing this documentary play out on TV about, the most atrocious act, that's happened in my lifetime anyways. So
that's insane that you saw that on vacation in Hawaii at a condo. This wasn't like a YouTube video, or this was an actual. Was it like Loose Change? Do you remember the documentary?
I can't. I've been rattling my brain so hard over the past few weeks trying to remember what the documentary was, and that's why I asked you for any additional documentaries that you had, because coming by stuff nowadays is just so hard with all the censorship.
Yeah.
And you can't find anything on YouTube. You can't, it's nearly impossible. So yeah, it was, I mean, I even asked my mom and dad about a week ago. I was like, hey, do you remember when we were in Hawaii and we were just relaxing in our condo after a long day and scrolled across this documentary about 9/11 and what really could have happened? And they were like, yeah, we remember watching that. And my mom really wasn't invested in it at that time, because she was kind of iffy on that. But me and my dad sat there and watched it for a little bit, and neither one of them knew. I still can't find, because I figured something would have juggled in my brain to remember which one it was, but I can't remember. But it was going through, the controlled demolition process. It was going through the Bush and Cheney administration, and how Al-Qaeda and all of them weren't behind it, and how the 19 hijackers weren't behind it. It was very odd. But yeah, this was broadcast on public TV in Hawaii.
Wow.
And I want to say it was around 2011, 2012. So
you would have been 18, 19 years old at that time?
Yep.
That's yeah. What are the odds? And maybe you would have woken up down the road, but to be in Hawaii at that particular time, to find that particular program, it's so funny how how the world works and how God works like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I watched that, and it kind of struck with me because I'm just a you know kind of a ding dong 20-year-old kid,
Yeah, sure.
and it but it made sense, and um, then life continues on and kind of slips by the wayside, and you don't really think about anything until maybe months or years later on, and then other stuff starts to hit you too, like flat earth and JFK, and just a multitude of stuff starts to hit you, and wondering what the true narrative actually is behind this stuff.
Now, but by the way, before I forget, I know people like to go to BitChute and Rumble, these alternative websites, but even I think BitChute has become a little bit censored lately. There is a pretty neat website, and I think maybe at one time David Weiss had something to do with this. Maybe I don't know, but if you go to stoplookthink.com, there's even a thing on the top, September 11th videos. Click here, and there is a pretty fair amount of information on 9/11 on that website. And I say that there's a lot of videos on that website. So again, check out stoplookthink.com, and they have Flat Earth, 9/11, and the COVID scamdemic and everything else that you can think of is on that website. Did you, talking about your awakening and your journey to the truth, did you come upon the moon landing before you came upon Flat Earth?
I think it was kind of intertwined with each other. They were, because like I was telling you in that first email, I was searching on TikTok, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, something about biblical truth popped up. And I've been a Christian my whole life, but something about churches these days, they don't really preach about the creation. They don't. It's just I don't know. I don't know their process in doing a lot of this stuff. But anyways, I've never heard anything about the creation and how he created everything. I mean, I've read Genesis, but never heard any teachings on it. But I started to go down and it kind of makes me laugh, of all things, the TikTok truth rabbit hole. So I started to see, weather balloons being sent up 120,000 feet with a flat horizon, and then I started to see some with NASA and their great deception with the moon landing, and even with Buzz Aldrin slipping up a few times and saying that he's never been to the moon, and
Yeah.
we've never done this or never done that. It was kind of intertwined with one another, with figuring out flat Earth and figuring out NASA's lies over what seems to be probably 50, 60 years now.
Yeah. And you would think if we actually had a real media that wasn't controlled by the controllers at the top, the puppeteers, the two particular videos, you think they would have grabbed, and it would have been on the 6 o'clock news. One would have been Don Pettit, just the ridiculousness of, well, we had the technology, but Jim lost the password to the lock and it got stolen, and it was hawked at a pawn shop in Houston down the road from here. No, go ahead.
All the evidence has been destroyed. All the technology's been destroyed. That one made me laugh for sure.
Yeah, again, the only time in history that technology has gone backwards. But the other one that really should have been leading the 6 o'clock news was Buzz saying, well, it didn't happen that way, when he was having, I think you were alluding to when he was having the conversation with that young lady, right?
Yes,
little girl.
The little girl,
Yeah.
where, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, even if it did, they would probably say, well, he's in his 90s and, he didn't really mean what he said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a
So,
particular piece of information when you were looking at the moon landing when you were like, wow, this is really like with many people for flat Earth, it was the curve. For me, excuse me, with the moon landing, it was the shadows going in multiple different directions. Was there something that really grabbed you when you were looking at that?
no, I don't know if there was any one thing that kind of grabbed me. It was the multitudes of things. The shadows, like I said, I was a photographer for a while, which, stuff like that doesn't work that way. Um, the lighting, shadows, the crater that should have been left when they took off, leaving their cameraman behind, stuff like that. The the reflections in their visors with not having clear visors, nobody seeing anybody's face, and then just wondering, who took the first steps on the moon? Was it the cameraman or was it, somebody else? Because it, and then just, hearing about I'm having a brain fart now with who supposedly directed it. Oh,
Oh,
Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick.
Yeah, but and then seeing photos of Kubrick and the astronauts together, and then a few other people together, and then hearing testimonies of other people who were involved in some of that stuff. It was kind of like a just a montage of stuff that kind of hit me. That it was like, okay, well, this didn't happen, and then you look back at the biblical side of it too, and it's just like, okay, this definitely couldn't have happened. So
Yeah, so you've been a Christian all your life. Was there ever a point in time prior to being awakened to flat Earth where you read the word firmament in Genesis and you stopped and thought and actually thought about that word? Because I know I didn't.
no, I didn't either, and that's the thing. It's just like I was saying about the church. They don't their main thing is, they touch on some stuff in the Old Testament, but it seems like to me that they teach heavily on the New Testament and very slightly on the Old. And I never, from my memory, I can't remember anything about Tieran's sermons or speeches about, the creation and about Genesis, or at least, the first half of Genesis per se. But it didn't click for me. I didn't start reading heavily into the Old Testament until after, I started down this rabbit hole. So I used to read Psalms and I've read the book of Job, but I've never dived deep into, all of it as a whole. So reading the creation account kind of opened some things for me, because right there in Genesis 1:6 it states the firmament, and I figured out what the firmament was through TikTok and through other flat earth videos. And that's kind of sad when you proclaim to be a Christian or you go to church your whole life, and then something that's right there in the the first 6 7 verses of the Bible, and it states the firmament, depending on what translation you have, because that word was changed in multiple translations, but it's right there. And just the normal person nowadays might not know what the firmament is, and they might have to Google it, or even go maybe on Yandex or
Yeah.
one of these other search engines and actually see what information there is about the firmament. But yeah, it was a complete eye opener to me, that I've never thought about it. I always thought that we were on a spinning ball going through space, and that's pretty much it. I took NASA's word for it, and the history books word for it, and the science books word for it, because that's what we're taught for, 12 to 16 years, depending on if you go to college.
Yeah, and then you pay six figures to be indoctrinated even more, which is funny when you sit back and think about it. By the way, for those who are looking for alternative search engines, Yandex, Yandex, and Brave is actually a very good one as well. It's interesting, if you put something in Google and put the exact same thing in Brave or Yandex, you'll see a couple similarities, but they do a much better job. Google is just going to lead you to what they want you to see, just like YouTube and their algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing that I've had a lot of troubles with. That's why I think it's kind of comical at to a point, but TikTok has, and I guess TikTok is the same as all of them, because there's been TikTok videos that I've seen where, you save them and then, it wouldn't even be days later and there's no video there anymore. So kind of the similar thing with YouTube, to where people keep uploading videos, getting censored, and then they'll just make a completely different channel, upload them for a few people to see, and then they get taken down again. So yeah, Google is that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, that is, and I'm going to be doing on the other podcast to be breaking down. There's probably some people who don't know, but there was something ran by DARPA called LifeLog, which was very similar to Facebook, and they shut it down literally the day before Facebook kicked off. The next day, Facebook takes off, and everybody's introduced to this new actor on the world stage, Mark Zuckerberg, and of course, just another coin for the coincidence jar, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, and I just thought it was interesting that the golden age of YouTube was about 2013 to 2017, and people would be able to upload stuff without as much censorization. And, that was one of the times where Flat Earth was actually at the top of the search results, along with, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, because that's when the election was going on. So, I mean, it was pretty far up there. And then it's just, I don't know if they got wind of a lot of this stuff, and with it, I mean, it goes along with 9/11 too, because that's another big one that's being censored. 9/11 and Flat Earth are two of the top censored things out there when it comes to video and information. So it was just crazy to figure out that Flat Earth was at the top of the search results for Google and YouTube in those years. And then they got wind of it, and then Google acquired YouTube, and all of a sudden it's no information anymore.
No, if you go to YouTube and put in Flat Earth now, you just debunk, right? Actually, the trick to YouTube, what I'll tell you, is put in whatever you're searching for, and then go into how you can manipulate the search, and do it by date. And you may not get exactly what you want right away, but you'll get a whole different look at things. That's how I usually find videos on YouTube. But it's interesting, if you look at, like, there's truther websites that's been around for 10 years and kind of abandoned, and you'll see, like, check out these videos, and they're all removed. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They've just killed all these videos.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, with looking up as a date. I'm kind of interested to try that now.
Yeah, so pop anything, and you can even put Flat Earth. I'll do it right now into YouTube. Press enter, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, Grant Hancock debunks Flat Earth theory inside a Flat Earth convention where nearly everyone believed the Earth isn't round. So again, if you're a normie and maybe you were at work, and you heard somebody mentioning it, and you go to YouTube and do it. After you look at the first three intros, you're like, I'm out of here. But if you click on filters and hit upload date, you'll see what is the firmament, biblical flat earth explained. And you'll start seeing there's a Flat Earth Discord live. AI debunks NASA space balloons. So, of course, you're going to see others in there because there's a lot of people who, for one reason or another, spend their time going after flat earthers, which, I mean, it's their time, their thing. But hey, there you go. But yeah, if you search by upload date, you'll have a lot more success, at least on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought about that before.
So where were we? Flat Earth. Where did you discover? I guess I've even asked you that. How did you come on the Flat Earth rabbit hole?
It was on TikTok with one of those biblical.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that. Yep.
Videos, and it had the voice overlays of, Flat Earth Dave and then Eric Dubay, and it was very, because I was, just a little bit of FYI, I was on lockdown for COVID. I got COVID in late 2021 and had to stay home from work for 7 days. And it was a crazy time. A lot of stuff was revealed in that week. Did a lot of praying during that week for discernment, for God Yahweh to open my eyes to certain things. And then it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. See these, like I mentioned before, these high altitude helium balloons being sent up 100,000, 120,000 feet, and you don't see any curve. And then they were quoting scripture, and there was some on there by Eric Dubay, the 200 or 100 proofs
of flat Earth,
flat
yeah.
Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, it was a crazy week for me. It was, because I think that happened on the first or second day of me staying home. And then every day my wife would get home from work, I'd have something new to show her, and it was just it was a crazy experience having all this shown to you, and then not realizing that that everything in front of you is either here to deceive you or to push a narrative. And it honestly, it sucks so bad to say that. It sucks that, people go to school, kids go to school every single day of the school year and are taught and forced to learn this stuff, and just to have it regurgitated through them. And where it couldn't be farther from the truth. And that's what breaks my heart the most, is these kids going to school, these people in college still being indoctrinated. And even that word to me right now is getting a little old, because I use it so much now, but it's the truth. And seeing all this, seeing all the experiments that the actual scientists do and actually did, from and I forget their names. I had some notes written down, but I don't have those anymore, from the late 1800s to current time now, like Aries failure.
Yep.
And it's just appalling to me that I figure this stuff out, and it rattles your reality. And some people don't want anything to do with it. They look at it like it's hokum and they just toss it aside. But it's it's just incredible now with looking out at God's creation for what it truly is. Because I'd never looked at it like that before. I'd always looked at it like, okay, I'm just a kid. This is just another day. Or, I'm a young adult. This is just another day. Got to go make money. Got to, pay the
Yeah.
bills. But then, you figure this out or you see actual scientific experiments being played out or that have already been played out to prove that we're stationary. We don't go anywhere. We don't move. There's a firmament, there's, Operation Fishbowl, there's all these kinds of things that you can research and look into, and it just it kind of shakes me, and it truly breaks my heart for people that even my dad's age. My dad's gonna be 60, and he wants nothing to do with it. He doesn't want to listen to me. He doesn't want to do anything of the sort. And it breaks my heart that these millions and millions of people have been lied to, and they either continue to go with it or they don't care, or the very slim margin of people decide to actually do some digging and look into it.
Yeah, and you said something that seems to be a common theme when I interview people, and you said, I'm reading verbatim from your email. It says, the truth sets you free, but it also makes you look like an outcast or someone who is shunned from their family and friends just from opening my eyes. And again, this is a common theme from just about everyone I've interviewed.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to deal with at times. Um, thank God for my wife. She is very, very receptive of this, and God bless her heart for being that way. My mother actually is coming around and being receptive of this because my mother is a very, very devout, uh, faithful Christian woman, and she never heard anything like this before, and me and her decided to have a conversation about this and still kind of have small conversations about this when the time is right, when certain other people aren't around because they don't want anything to do with it or hear about it. But she is very receptive, and I've done some biblical research and some like listening to people as yourself and people as of Flat Earth Dave and Eric Dubay, and watching the Level documentaries, and I think he's coming out with a new one here soon, Level with Me.
Yeah, that
But
came out, I think, on the 22nd, April 22nd.
okay, yeah, and it is very difficult. It's And like I was saying before, with these kids and young adults being taught this and them not really, you know, paying mind to any of it, they're just there to take tests and regurgitate and not doing really any critical thinking of their own. But it just breaks my heart for people that that either don't want to open their eyes or don't want to do any critical thinking themselves. But yeah, it's very difficult. It makes you feel like an outsider, and with not to go on a rant of any sort, but somebody that deals with anxiety or whatever on somewhat of a regular basis, it makes it even harder because You don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn to, you don't know who to talk to, and all you want to do is to just in my perspective is to spread God's love first off, but then teach the actual creation, and just and go from there, and actually have everything that's in the Bible spoken about, not just cherry picking here and there, and then ignore and override the rest. It's very difficult because um my father actually went and spoke to one of our administrative pastors at our church and asked him about this, and they both kind of just scoffed, and they were like, "Oh, well, what does it matter?"
Oh, that's a shame.
And it kind of hurt a little bit, but I wasn't really expecting anything less than that.
Yeah, but when
So,
you think about it, if your father took the time and effort to go sit down and talk to them about it, they should have assumed and realized how much it meant to you.
yeah, and that's what you think, but then it's just it's a convoluted dynamic too, with dealing with family members and dealing with friends and strangers. It's a very convoluted game, and it's hard to not necessarily persuade, but it's even hard to open people's eyes to the truth. And the saddest part is that these are people high up in the church congregation. So it just like I was saying, I wasn't expecting anything less, but it certainly did, hurt a little bit. Like, you guys are the one coming up with the sermons every week. You guys are the ones in the Word, every day, or supposedly every day. And it's very sad, and it does break my heart that even people of the church aren't don't really care about it, and don't really want to step into that area of what's truth, what's real, what God's word says. And yeah, it's a very hard road to walk for sure.
Yeah, two things. When the I think you said the assistant pastor said, what is it? What's the difference, or what does it mean? That's the $1 million question, and it means everything. It quantifies it. It validates that this was smartly created for us. This was no accident. And it's sad because, like, today we had a brunch. Our family had a brunch for Mother's Day, and when I'm in those types, I'm like you. I'm an anxious person, but I also love having conversation about truth. Obviously, I do these podcasts, but sometimes I feel like I can't even be myself, because that's who I am, right? I love to talk about the truth, and you just can't. I can't get that done in that type of atmosphere. Just you get shut down. And then, there's a whole range of emotions you go through, including, why even am I wasting my time? So that's something that, we talk about all the time is how can we be better? How can we convey the message better to get people? And I've said less is more, and we've had all kinds of ideas. But at the end of the day, there's been so many examples of the government lying. I wish people would be more receptive to hearing these truths.
Yeah, and just a couple of points on that too. You hit it spot on. There's it. It's very difficult to be yourself anymore. And because I used to, I'm a little bit of a nerd, not afraid to put that out there. but I used to collect football trading cards, baseball trading cards, used to know, you know, all the players, the positions they played, the years they won titles, all this stuff. And then something like this hits you, and it completely changed me as a person. And I'm not trying to gloat or be prideful right now, but God has a very, very distinct way on how he interacts with every single one of his creations and every single one of his people. And in my way, it was I spent the majority of my younger years, fascinated with sports and fascinated with space and space exploration. And me and my family would get together and watch the Super Bowl and watch the Stanley Cup and watch the World Series and watch even the playoffs. I mean, even if I'm from Wyoming, so our go-to teams were like the Denver Broncos, the Colorado Rockies, the Colorado Avalanche. And we would watch their games, do all this. We knew all the players, and then you have this dumped on you, and God's like, "All right, your life's going to change, buddy. Hope you're ready for it." And none of that stuff even matters to me anymore. I mean, I couldn't tell you one single player on a team anymore. And he did it very slowly too. It's not like it just, boop, bomb dropped on you overnight and it happened. It was years of God, working in my life to kind of structure me a certain way to when he wanted me to find this stuff out, he would reveal it to me. And from then on, it's been a game changer. It's all I want to do when I go over to family functions or even have a couple of friends over, it's I want to sit down, I want to see how they're doing, make sure they're doing good, and chit chat with them for a little bit. And then I just like, there's so much information that I'm just like, okay, have you thought about this? Have you heard about this? And to a point, you can do that with certain people, but then it just, you can't really in other situations. And then it makes you wonder, what are you doing? You're just hanging out with these people that don't, that, for lack of better words, that don't care. And you don't feel like you can be yourself around anybody really. And it just, it puts you in a hole kind of. So that's the part that hurts the most.
Yeah. Somebody said something really, really eye-opening today. They said, you are what you consume. They used to say back in the day when you're in school, you are what you eat, right? If you eat stuff with a lot of sugar and grains and too much, you're not going to be healthy. But I think it's smarter, the way he said it is, you are what you consume. And that doesn't mean just food. He's talking about what you listen to, what you watch, etc. And it does make a big difference because, and we're not just talking about your diet. Pre-awakening, people, you'd spend your weekends maybe watching a movie that you shouldn't really be watching or listening to music with words you shouldn't be listening to. All that stuff, it really applies to your hygiene, your physical and your spiritual and your mental hygiene. And I think, like you were saying, and I think that is a common theme as well. I was the same guy. I'd come home from work, eat dinner, and I'd go immediately to the TV. It's 7 o'clock. Is the Phillies on, or the Eagles on? Is the Flyers on? Trying to find something to watch. I'd watch golf. It didn't matter. I watched the Arena Football League. Anything with sports, Australian rules football, I would watch. And then you realize, I did, at least. I thought back, wow. I mean, all the hours, if you were to add them up, that you just sat in front of the box doing nothing, just looking at it. And sure, it's being entertained. And once or twice a year, I'll go out to a ball game or something with a family member or something. Just, again, you can't be in the rabbit hole 24/7, 365. You'll drive yourself crazy. But you can't immerse yourself in it either. You're missing so much of the world and life. And that's one thing I'm sure I've mentioned a few times, is since realizing that the earth's flat, we have a firmament. This was created for us. I actually, not to sound like an old hippie, but I do enjoy looking at nature a lot more. I guess I just took it for granted.
Yeah, and that's exactly to the point that I was making too. Ever since I, whether you want to call it having my eyes opened, or, I guess that's what I'll go with, is looking out on his creation now compared to back then. It puts me in so much more of a state of awe than it did before. I'd go out and, like I said, I've been to Hawaii. I've seen the Hawaiian sunsets, and they were cool, but if I were to go back there now and see it, it would blow my mind. Yeah. With how things work and how he makes them work, and it astonishes me. Just, I mean, every time I go out to like Walmart, or I have to go to anywhere, fill up with gas, or anywhere late at night, and just look up at the stars or look up at the moon. And the moon is a whole nother subject in its own. And it's appalling. You look at it and you're like, wow, this is different. This is something crazy here. We probably will never fully understand, but this is amazing. Looking at Polaris, the North Star, looking at, and like I said, I was a photographer doing time lapses of the stars at night, and having all of the stars rotate around Polaris. And like I said about the moon, and a couple things that I figured out about the moon was, I don't ever like to speak about anything that I can't actually put evidence or fact behind.
Sure.
So, like the 9/11 dust, how there's traces of nanothermite and thermate and right. Stuff like that. That's blatantly right there in your face proof.
Yep.
But speaking on God's creation and stuff, it's hard to sometimes figure out actual proofs. But just like the map of the moon, and looking at how the dark spots on the moon could coalesce with land masses down here, like it's some sort of a reflection. That was something that I stumbled across. And I don't know much about that, but that was something different that I read about and watched videos about. And then having looked at Crow 777's videos and watching his videos about the lunar wave, that was something weird, to say the least. That was a weird one for me to come across.
Yep, indeed. I think, the two biggest lies, obviously one is, the heliocentrism in a nutshell, that we're on a ball, we're spinning, hurtling through space. That's a big lie. But the lies of the moon, and again, this goes back to, I wish there was, I guess, more preachers that would, and again, I'm not a church basher. I hope I don't come across like that, because I'm not. But because we were all guilty of this growing up and reading the Bible, we'd read the Bible. And I talked about this to our local pastor. I ran into him 2 weeks ago. We kind of had this conversation where people show up to church and we talk one thing, and then we send our children off to school and they get taught about evolution and everything else. And that's one of the big reasons why we decided to homeschool. But the other big lie, which goes directly against, Genesis 1, is God created two lights. He didn't create one light and one dusty ball that had a reflection on it. And that is a very big key to me. When I became a flat earther, I reread Genesis 50 times. And I don't know about you, but again, I had a wide range of emotions. I felt free, and then I got mad, because at that point I'd already gone through 9/11, which, what I did for a living for quite some time. I felt betrayed and used, and that was quite an emotional roller coaster. But I'm like, is there anything in my life I haven't been like? Is anything real? It was a big, big deal to me. How about yourself?
Yeah, that was, the whole thing is just big, and it's hard to unravel too. Because it's like you're at this center of a tortilla that's just been wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrapped, and you got to just try to get through the layers of everything. It's very difficult, from the moon landing to the secrets of Antarctica, to Antarctica being this huge landmass that's at the bottom of our globe, to it possibly being the outer ice wall that surrounds the entire Earth. And like Captain Cook and his expedition going around and circumnavigating Antarctica. I think it was Captain Cook that did that.
Yep,
But,
indeed.
took him
60,000 miles. And took him, what, 3 years?
Yeah, 60,000 miles, and it was like 3 years and 8 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And then just all the numerology that's beyond or behind everything. Like the moon's diameter, it's like 6 times 6 times 60, and that equals out to what equals the diameter of the moon. And that's 3 sixes. And then a listener that you had on, and you even responded to this too. It's like everything that God creates, Satan and his minions have a counterfeit for. And it didn't really strike me until I heard it. But it's just you get in this phase of what's real. You start to question everything, and you start to kind of look like a buffoon.
Yep. You're right. Satan perverts everything. Everything. It's exactly. They don't create anything. He just takes it and perverts it.
Yeah. And it's so hard to discern nowadays. And for me anyways, I keep praying. I keep looking at what's in front of me. I keep doing research, along with, because you can't, like you said, you can't dive down so deep that you just get swallowed up by this stuff. But, take an hour a day, do some research, and, make the discernment for yourself. Pray that Yahweh gives you hints here and there, and you're able to discern it for yourself. And yeah, everything's just appalling to me nowadays. Just like the just like the stars. The stars are our, our yearly clock, if you would say. And they could also be used as a map. And then, the moon is our monthly calendar. And then, the sun is our daily time clock. I mean, he creates these things very distinct and very in wits with what we need to know and how we can circumnavigate life. And they're right in front of our faces. And nowadays, people don't use any of that stuff. It's all old school stuff, or it's all forgotten history, or whatever people want to call it these days. But that's what God created them for. Like you were saying, God created a light for the day and a light for the night. And he's not saying he created a dusty old rock that's gonna revolve around the sun, or excuse me, the earth. It's right there for us. It has a purpose. And yeah, everything just appalls me nowadays. We rotate at 1,000 miles an hour, and we rotate around the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. There's your triple sixes. And then we're plummeting through space at, what is it, almost 500,000 miles an hour. I mean, it just it makes no sense to me whatsoever. Just like the circumference of the earth is like, what, 24,000 miles, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's between 24 and 25,000, I believe.
Yeah, and then the whole Captain Cook thing with circumnavigating Antarctica, and it taking 3 years and close to 60,000 miles. Okay, well, where do you get that math? It's where does this line up at? Because 60,000 miles, according to my view, is a lot larger than the equator of the Earth. So yeah, it's just kind of odd to me.
It's funny. If you go to Google, and use Google for this one, folks, put in, how long would it take to circumnavigate Antarctica? You want to take a guess what the answer is? In days?
What would it be?
What's the Freemasons' favorite number?
33?
There you go. The voyage would take 33 days. You gotta love it. It's right there in your face.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, there's so much stuff to just, I mean, not even take a shallow dive into, but just take a deep dive into. And I mean, one thing after another. It's just, and George, to be completely honest, I didn't know about any of this stuff 2 years ago. And it's just, it's odd. It's just very odd to me that, and I mean, I can picture myself being, a 29, 30-year-old guy going through life not knowing any of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, having my eyes open. So I'm not gonna judge people that don't know about it yet, but it gets very hard when you try to talk to people about it, when you try to talk to people about Antarctica, when you try to talk to people about like Operation Fishbowl, or when you try to say that like, I mean, I think you've even said it when you like, you're saying, like, on a sunny Sunday morning, you're sitting here and then you decide to take a hike, and the sun feels so much hotter and the rays feel like they're so much more intense, even when you just are up maybe 2, 3, 4,000 feet in elevation. And I mean, how could that happen if the sun is 93 million miles away? I mean,
Exactly.
that's just a human hair compared to like a full-blown 20-foot living room.
Exactly.
So it's just, yeah, and it's just, it's appalling to me. I just, I'm flabbergasted at a lot of this stuff because you see what you're taught and you see all this stuff that you start to research and none of it makes any sense. Their numerology, the way that they do math, the way that it's like they pick a number and they do the math to fit that answer.
Yeah,
And
they say this is the answer we want, and then they kind of like reverse engineer it, right?
yeah, so it's just, yeah, it's a lot of this is very hard to wrap your head around, but at the end of the day, I mean, the evidence is right there in front of your face. So I don't like to badmouth people because, I don't think Yeshua, Jesus, I don't think he would do any of this. He would love and care for people and try to spread the truth to people, which I mean, this isn't probably on his in his top five list of his agenda to spread, but it's there, you know, it's there for people to learn. It's there for people to know that he created everything through him. So it's just, yeah, it's just it's very difficult to try to wrap your head around.
It is
But if
because I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're good. It's just, but if you can, then props to you.
Right.
You're you've you've either got God's discernment on your side, or you've got Him working in your life in some way or manner that maybe you're not even a Christian, but he may be working in your life in some sort of way.
Yeah, because most people, when they find the truth, no matter what it is, the first instinct is to share it. And, many of the truths people are willing to listen to, even, at work, the theories, but there's a couple of them that you just can't bring up. And it is a little, like you said, it is a little frustrating, but at the same time, there was a point of our life where we were all asleep, and that's something I try to remember. And even people will email me and say, "Hey, listen, we were all asleep at one point," and that's why I don't, Bill Cooper used to use the word sheeple, but I, looking back, I understand his frustration. This guy wrote a book and spent, he was on the radio for a little over a decade, I think. Exposing the truths. He wasn't a flat earther. And there was, we all have our, opinions and ideals, but I understood where he was coming from. And it can be very frustrating because once, like if you go back to think about that movie, They Live, once you finally put that guy in a headlock and stick the eyeglasses on and they see, it's a whole different world. And all you want is, people in your circle to be able to see the same thing you do. But again, it's a tricky slope. I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit. There's no correct answer, so don't worry about it. But we're working on this. I always talk about less is more. This is kind of the perfect time to segue. And we're coming up with this idea to get these business cards with just a website on it. Like, check this out. Just hand out these little business cards with a website and like open your eye. Just a couple little things on it, just to trigger them enough to get them curious enough to go to the website. And, if you go to any public speaking course, like if you've gone to a community college or any college, it's normally one of the first courses you'll take is public speaking. And they always tell you, you normally have about 30 seconds to get somebody's attention. If you don't, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to check out mentally. So Here, I'm asking you to pitch this to you. So we hand out these cards to a certain website. I'm not going to publicize it because I don't want somebody to buy it, and then there goes that idea. But that they get curious enough, they go to the website. I want to have a video on the very front, just a 2-minute video. If you were, if you were in charge of this project, what is the most? If you had to squeeze something in 2 minutes to get somebody's attention on flat Earth, what would you do?
Oof, that's that's very heavy. Um, I don't know. I think the things that reached out to me the most were, oof. I mean, that's tricky, George. That is tricky. Because I know for me, it was with me being of Christian background, I had already had the knowledge that God created everything and He created it through Yeshua, but I don't know how people's standpoints on that would be. So I don't know if that would be something that you would have in that, 2-minute video, even though it is the truth
Yeah.
in mine and yours eyes, and probably some of our listeners' eyes. But oof, that's loaded, man. You're putting me on the spot.
So well, let me float my idea to you. And this is, again, it's 2 minutes, and you'll be surprised how much you can fit into a 2-minute video. But I was thinking, and again, we're just starting to spitball here. We're weeks away from even getting this thing completely rolling. But it starts with, I think most people who eschew flat Earth don't really know about heliocentrism. So I was thinking at least of starting like, are you sure we're living on a ball? Are you sure the sun is 93 million miles away? Are you sure we're spinning at, 1,000 miles an hour? Just to plant that instead of just saying, hey, it's flat, starting to, I think before you can show someone flat Earth, you need to debunk their theory and then reel them in with pictures of lakes not moving and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as you, because most people that believe that we are on a spinning ball going through space at 500,000 miles an hour, they don't even know the numbers.
No.
Don't they don't either they don't care to know the numbers, or it just they don't remember the numbers from what they've been taught. And yeah, that's very tricky because, like I was saying, one of the things that hit me the hardest was that NASA would always use fisheye lenses.
Yep.
Even on the Red Bull jump with Felix Baumgartner, he had the fisheye lens on the outside of his capsule, but it looks like on the inside of his capsule was maybe a wider lens, like maybe a 35 millimeter lens,
Mm-hmm.
but not something like terribly wide, like a fisheye lights, like an 8 to 15 millimeter lens. But on the inside of his capsule is there's a flat horizon behind him. And then, you send these helium balloon. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied over here.
No worries.
And they send up these balloons that are, 100,000, 120,000 feet, and it's nothing but a flat horizon. And the horizon will always meet you at eye level. Instead of, if we lived on a sphere, you go up, you'd have to continually, tilt your camera down just to be able to see what's beneath you. Instead of in, the horizon always meeting your eye line. So I don't know. I think that could be a point that could be thrown in there. the whole fisheye lens, the whole points of, because all these people, they slip up from now and then. They do. Bill Nye has slipped up. Neil deGrasse Tyson has slipped up. You know, and even Neil deGrasse, the Prince of Science these days,
Yeah.
he's speaking about how, the whole Red Bull jump, he wouldn't be able to see curvature.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, well, Felix Baumgartner in his interview said that he saw curvature. And he's not extremely high up, but he's pretty far up there. So, I mean, everything just kind of contradicts itself, and I think that that's something that you might be able to lead with, is the contradiction of everything, because sooner or later somebody's going to slip and say something. And I always refer to your podcast because I listen to them so much, along with a few others, and do research for myself. But, you have very good points on your podcast, and you say that Satan will always, or God will always tip Satan's hand. He's never going to reveal the full truth.
That's right.
But he'll always, factor out something to where people of true discernment will be able to pick up on. And they'll be like, oh, okay, well, here's a breadcrumb that you laid out for me. Where does it go? You don't know where the next breadcrumb may be, but that's for you to figure out. He's always going to tip his hand. And I think the contradictions are everywhere. And they are, with either it be numerology, whether it be reverse engineering their math, whether it be with them, even slipping up on, like a news broadcast or some sort of podcast that's being recorded, they do slip up, and then they have to correct themselves. And they have to put out these lousy excuses for themselves for even slipping up to go along with their true false narrative. Maybe that would be something, but the things that strike out to me are the elevation factor, with nothing ever showing curvature, with the science experiments that have been done that prove that we do not go anywhere, to prove that, every single year on that same exact day, the stars are going to be in the same exact spot, how the moon goes through its cycle every single month. And then the whole Antarctica thing, that Antarctica is just a mystery in its own, because nobody really knows what's down there. So, those are just me spitballing a few ideas of what could maybe be implemented into that video. Is there contradictions and their kind of pseudoscience, or, the sun, the moon, the stars, and how they all work.
Yeah, that's all great ideas. And I always say, even the people who were the most asleep, who just consume, sports TV and Facebook or whatever, those people, everybody's familiar with the number 666. And if you would just point out, again, 66,600 miles, the axis, 23.4, obviously is leaves you at a 66.6 degree angle. Just all that numerology with the sun, I think that would get their attention as well. And the little clips of, again, the knucklehead Don Pettit saying, well, we'd go back to the moon, but we lost the technology. And then with like Buzz Aldrin saying, well, it didn't happen that way. I think I think that would be enough just to get their attention. And that's what you want to do. You want to get them in the door, just like a car salesman, right? You want to get them in the door. You want to get them on the car lot. And then once you get their attention, then you can start, really pitching the truth. And of course, I would certainly I would definitely include God in there as well, 100%. Because at the end of go ahead, bud. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because at the end of the day, that is the most important, is saving souls. That is number one, without a doubt.
Yeah, that is number one, without a doubt. The most important thing that we're here for. And I mean, I may be taking a different approach than, some other listeners or whatever, and I hope that they hear me and they hear you, and maybe other listeners have kind of stated this point, but human life is the most important thing on this earth. There's nothing more important. And if you that's just a whole nother conversation on its own, pretty much, that could take hours of time discussing is human life, and how we interact with one another, and how we care for one another and show empathy towards one another. And it's huge. It's the biggest thing. And that's why it breaks my heart so much for these people out there learning false narratives, learning about fakery. You can't really spin it a different way, no pun intended, but it hurts. I mean, it hurts for me. It hurts for knowing that, millions of people are being led this way. And, maybe a fraction of them are going to maybe open their eyes to what the truth really is. And I mean, I came prepared with notes and everything, but I've been just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But I have a list here of like 25, 30 Bible verses that, show and state the way that the earth was made, how it's structured, all this kind of stuff. Speaking from Genesis all the way to Revelations, it's sprinkled out through there. So, I mean, it's just it does truly hurt to know this. And then it also, I'm not bad mouthing on any churches or anything, but I wish that they would start to try to implement some of this stuff into their weekly, monthly, yearly, teaching regimen, if that's what you want to call it. Because, you got so many on here. You got Isaiah 44:24. You got Hebrews, 11:3.
Go ahead and read them. Go with
I don't have them.
Oh,
I don't
I'm sorry.
have them written down.
I'm sorry.
But, I do have just the verse numbers written down because I was doing some research on them, and I only wrote down the verses themselves.
Give me the one from Isaiah one more time. Isaiah 44.
Isaiah 44:24.
44:24. And that one here, I'll read it real quick. 44:24. It says, here we go. Thus saith the Lord thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretches forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself.
So and there's so many.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And even on Warner von Braun's headstone, and I mean, the four angels at the corners of the earth.
Yep.
And then, something that hit me the other day was, the earth is set upon pillars.
Yep.
So, is Antarctica on pillars? And are we just, sitting on, are we just a globe sitting on the pillars that are underneath Antarctica? That makes no logical sense to me. And it's just, I mean, there's so many, there's a ton here that I've done research on. And, Proverbs 8:29, speaking about the seas and how they have their limitations. And speaking about how that could possibly be pointing to the ice wall in Antarctica.
Yep.
You never know. He doesn't blatantly say there that Antarctica is the border for the seas, but it's up for debate. I don't know why it would say that if it didn't have meaning behind it. And then, there's so many others. Psalm 104:5, Psalm 93:1, Job. There's a few in Job, actually. And then, Joshua stating that, he made the sun and moon stay stationary for a while,
Exactly.
So, that just contradicts everything right there in one verse. If he makes the sun stay stationary,
Gravity stops and we go floating into space, right?
yeah, exactly. It makes no sense to their pseudoscience way of thinking. It doesn't. Because when you look at a flat Earth map, and truly, I don't think anybody really knows what a flat Earth map would look like. I mean, we have the Gleason's map of what is it, 1892?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
And, there's mysteries about the North Pole. There's mysteries about Antarctica. So, I think we have a general representation of what our continents look like, but still there is a mystery behind what is exactly at the North Pole, because that's still, that's fortified. Nobody can exactly go to, the exact point of north. So, I mean, everything's just weird.
Yeah, and again, when everything is based on lies, it's the truth is hard to discern. That is the biggest problem, and that's, I said a couple podcasts ago, I need to start using my Bible more for research, because that is based 100% fact, right?
And yeah, for me and you and maybe many of our listeners, anyways. But I feel bad because I have a list of 30 verses written out, and I didn't exactly put them exactly right, the verses down. I just have their chapter and verse pointed out on here. But it's astonishing how much is there, and all the answers, mostly all the answers, because I truly don't believe that we are meant to know everything. Otherwise, that would kind of put us in his shoes.
Exactly. And it's,
yeah.
I mean, I think God wants to challenge us, and the same, we shouldn't look to others for answers all the time, because just because somebody tells us something, that doesn't mean it's the truth. And I tell people all the time, when you listen to my podcasts, take it as a tool, but continue to research for yourself. And by the way, I have a link I'll put in the show description. This one is, I always have a side, and I should have put it in others, but I have 15 Bible verses, including Psalms 104:5 is, it's, he set the earth on its foundations, it can never be moved. I mean, that should be in the top 5 in our toolbox. I mean, it cannot be moved, right? And then you were talking about, I think, Revelation 7:1, which is, after this I saw the 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was kind of funny in one of your previous podcasts, they were talking about, oh, well, let's all get our iPads out and watch it on on our iPads when the angels and when Yeshua returns. It makes no sense because when I think of Yeshua returning, I think of, after the tribulation period, however you want to discern that, every single soul on this earth will be able to see it. Whether if you're in China, Europe, Canada, United States, South America, over in Australia, you'll be able to see it. It'll be a great grand finale. So I don't picture that happening on a globe per se.
Exactly. And I believe they, and again, this isn't me, this is what I think they are thinking. I think the whole reason that they came up with NASA and the outer space and they started making all the sci-fi movies, I think in their mind, they're hoping they can create a narrative when God comes back. They can say, "Oh, it's aliens," but again, like it says, everybody will know. But they will use every tool they have to deceive us to the very end.
Yes, and that goes along with my next thought is that I feel with everything going on in the world right now that Satan is working overtime. He is he's definitely putting in the footwork to get stuff done right now. And it's sadly for the masses, it's working. And for those of us that listen to your podcast, that have, been awakened, that have their eyes open to see and their ears open to hear, this is all just a bunch of poppycock. And it because I don't watch the news anymore. I don't it's hard for me to even speak to people about this stuff. It's full blown steam ahead for them and their agenda.
That's so funny how things happen. You'd mentioned you don't watch news. I don't either. I don't ever go to websites about news. I track the events in Eastern Europe and things like that. I have a couple folks on Telegram and friends around the world I chat with for my news. So while you were saying that just then, I said, let's see what's going on in the world. So I went to CNN.com and this huge news story, just huge. Blast is 100 times brighter than all the stars in the Milky Way combined. The largest cosmic explosion ever witnessed is still burning bright after 3 years. This is the top story on CNN.com. Oh, man,
Geez.
more deceit, and people, I'm sure, are eating it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting, there, I always reflect back to going out, on a clear night and just looking at the stars and the moon, even if it's just for, even if it's just for 15 seconds. I think everybody can spare 15 seconds of a day and go out and look at the stars and look at the moon and realize, because there's been a few days lately within the past couple weeks where the sun and the moon have been up at the same time. And the moon makes no sense on being a reflection of the sun's light with the phase that the moon has been in. You see the sun, you see the moon on the other side of the horizon, and you think, well, maybe the moon should be fully illuminated because you can walk or drive or fly, 200-300 miles maybe, and you're still illuminated. And I'm just spitballing here, but the moon is not fully illuminated. It's, 2/3 illuminated. And then when you look back at the sun and you look at the moon, it's like, something's kind of weird here. Don't you think that that should be fully illuminated if the sun's right there and everything's all that light from the sun is hitting that moon and reflecting back to us to where we can see it? Don't you think that thing should be fully illuminated? It's just, and then you go back to Genesis and it's, there's a point there. There's there's discernment and critical thinking that need to happen right there to realize that they are two separate lights, whether
Mhm.
you see them at the same time or you see one by night and one by day.
Precisely. And you can't believe the moon landing story and the fact that it reflects light. They just don't go together. And especially
No.
during the daytime. How is it reflecting during the daytime when it's light out?
Yeah. Yeah. It just, a lot of it doesn't make any sense once you put critical thinking into it. And that's just the thing. It's critical thinking. It's sitting down, reflecting on what you've seen, reflecting on what you've heard, and coming up with your own discernment of what's happening right here.
Yep.
It's just, this doesn't make sense. Why are we being told this? Why have we been told this for many years? It's just like what else have we been lied to about?
Most everything. Most everything.
Yeah. And then just like Antarctica, nobody is allowed to go there. I mean, you can buy excursions to go there for what, 10, 20, 30, $40,000.
Yeah.
And you only get to go, so far, which is minimal at the least. Very, very minimal. And the names of the places that you're allowed to go are very mysterious.
Rothschild Island and Deception Island, nothing to see here.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just, okay, Operation Fishbowl, what's going on there? And then you start to piece some of these things together and start to develop kind of like a puzzle that you're putting together. And it seems like every piece that you put in, 5 more get added to your box of puzzle pieces that you still got to put in there. So and it's just, and I don't, they've came up with this so perfectly to deceive so many people. So perfectly. I mean, it's not perfect to the standpoint of like people like me and you and, your listeners and, fellow people like me to, kind of read through these kind of things. But it's just, the moon landing, the globe, the heliocentric model, and forgive me, I don't know the scientists' names that came up with this, but were they even real? Were they, physical human beings, or were they part of their narrative that they just created because nobody's going to be able to, do their own digging and research to figure out if these people actually existed? That's another rabbit hole to go down. There's so many pieces that are not applicable to putting together. And it's just, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me with this. I take God's word for what it is. I've been doing research to figure out what this is. I've been listening to your podcast and other podcasts and trying to find stuff on search engines, and it's getting harder and harder day by day to find this stuff, just like the censorship in Canada. And with anybody looking up flat earth, and It's just it's appalling.
It is 100%. And again, it all goes back to deception. And as you're talking and you're hitting home run after home run, I didn't even notice that the story under the big story was the big question is sleeping will be one of the challenges for astronauts on Mars missions. And it's just, it's funny when you see, again, and even the person who probably wrote this story, Ashley Strickland, you know, probably clueless to the truth as well, and believes these type of things. And again, the truth is everything. You have to question everything. Going back to your point, I believe 100% that so much of our history has been fabricated. Specifically, I'm not going to get into it because we touched on it a lot on the last interview. But a lot of World War II stories were created. A lot of stories about the Civil War was created. And I think there is something too, and this is something I haven't spent enough time on, and that's one of the resources we all never have enough of is time. But I find it very interesting that, 1776 was such an important year in our nation's history. Well, May 1st, 1776, just, I wonder, I hope it's not 66 days, but, the Illuminati was formed, May 1st, 1776, and 2 months later, basically America's born, It's just, I think about that stuff all the time. These characters that are in our history books, everything from Copernicus, on and on and on, if these characters were even real.
Yeah. And it just it sends a downward spiral in your mind of what could have actually happened. You wish you could be a fly on the wall when some of these events actually happen, and then jump through a portal to a different timeline to where something major happened again, to be a fly on the wall and actually hear what happened, to know the actual truth of what happened. And it's it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to dive into. You could spend a whole lifetime diving into this stuff, and you'll only probably get, within the cherry on top of what's actually going on. So, and it makes it that much harder, but then at the same time, it makes it easier for people like me and you and our listeners and our friends to, see these things unfolding before us and saying, hey, is this really what's going on? I don't know if this is really what's going on. Let's dive a little bit deeper into it and see what's behind the veil. And I think that's where, a lot of people need to be at. Because in my eyes, if you can imagine, all those people that worship sports, or,
Yeah.
if you take all those people and put them in a mind frame of somebody like you, or of someone of your listeners' mind frame, and put them there for a week to do research, to discern for themselves what actually happened in these events in World War II, like you stated, or the Vietnam War even,
Yeah.
or the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, or the moon landing, or anything along these major headline movements. There would I would hope to think that there would be a big movement that would happen and persuade others, even if it's just those devout sports onlookers. And it's just sad to
And
think that way.
indeed, and you said something. I always a friend of our family, her daughter works for E Entertainment, and she interviews all these people in Hollywood. I always thought that whether it's athlete worship or actor worship, it was always really cringe to me. Even when before I was awake to anything, I was never, even when we were at a ball game with good seats, I wasn't asking for autographs. I was just there to enjoy the game. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just giving you my point of view.
Yeah, yeah, and that's fair. That's an awesome point because I was because every summer from like let me see. It's getting so hard for me to remember stuff with all the things rattling around in my brain. But we would go to 2, 3, 4 Colorado Rockies games every summer.
Sure.
Just me and my family. And, me and my brother would be those two kids, down by the first base line, hoping during batting practice that, Todd Helton or Larry Walker or, somebody would come up.
Dante Bichette.
Yeah, Dante Bichette would come up and, sign a baseball for us. But it's just, yeah. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of at a loss for words right now. It's so hard to reflect back on those times because those are just normal people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's okay to cherish those memories 100%. Like for me with the TV and the movies and everything, I'm like, darn, I could have done so much better. But at the same time, you can't live your life with regret either. I think everything happens in a particular order on purpose. Of course, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I didn't regret some things. But I think, once again, God's puts these things in order for you to be able to accept it. Because I used to be, like I said, I just wanted to watch sports. That's what I was. That was my thing. And of course, like so many people, once you wake up, you're just infatuated and you just want to consume knowledge and get to the bottom of every single thing. Because I learned basically our country was only, I guess if you want to call it wholesome or whatever, until about 1811. Then 1812, the banks got involved again, and it's been downhill ever since. The bankers have controlled the world for the last 200. I'm sure it's been longer than that, but I'm talking here in this country. They've been in control, and they really choked us off, obviously, in 1913 with the Federal Reserve being enacted. And then they went off the gold standard in 71, and who knows what happened to all the gold. And, of course, 9/11, which we didn't get around to. We'll have to get into that. Maybe you can come on the Fact Hunter podcast sometime, but we can get into that. The gold that disappeared from, I think it was Building 7.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Like I was saying before, you put one piece of the puzzle in, and then 5 others appear in your box, ready to be put back into the puzzle.
Yep.
It's just it's never ending. 9/11, like I was saying, is my baby with trying to piece all these things together, and because I still remember what I was doing that morning.
Sure.
And I asked my mom a few weeks ago if she remembered what she was doing, and she told me her whole story, which coincided with my whole story because I was 10 years old. I was sitting at we had our kitchen area, but we had a kind of like a bar section on the other end of our kitchen area with bar stools sitting right there. And I would always eat cereal in the morning before going to school. And we had one of those like 13-inch box TVs sitting on the counter. And I was sitting there eating cereal. My mom was making me my lunch for the day at school, and me and my mom were just sitting there watching it play out on TV, and very vivid in my mind, very vivid in her mind, and yeah, everything just kind of snowballs after that, which, whatever section or whatever event that happens with you figuring something out, it turns into kind of like a snowball effect.
Yep.
And then you do more research on that event, and then it leads to others, and then eventually it led me into flat earth by circumstance. But yeah, I don't think the earth is a ball spinning in space, rotating around the sun with the moon orbiting around it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it's a lot to unfold for sure with everything with because I don't think the earth is, it's not perfectly flat.
Of
We
course
have
not.
mountain elevations that go, 13, 14, 15,000 feet,
Yep.
maybe even higher. We have depths of the ocean that reach what, 7 miles, if not more.
And they've dug as far as, I think, 7.5 feet in Russia. It's the deepest hole in the world, as far as I know.
Yeah. And then, so it's not, I like the term flat earth because it brings people to a kind of like a community set, like you said at the beginning of the episode,
Yep.
or in our interview pre-episode. But it's not perfectly flat. There's hills, there's valleys, there's rivers, there's oceans that reach very, very, very large depths, and very, very large heights. But I think as a whole, yes, I think that we are on a flat stationary plane where Antarctica is kind of a mystery because nobody's allowed to go there. And it just makes me curious about the firmament. It makes me curious about the stars, about the moon, and yeah, flat Earth is just a crazy thing to stumble upon and to actually invoke into your vocabulary. And yeah, it's just this past couple of years has just been crazy for me with, it brought me it brought me so much closer to God, and then it made me want to go back and read the creation. And I'm actually gonna order the Book of Enoch, and how the Bible only has 66 books in it, but I think fully as a whole, maybe possibly it involved 70 books, and maybe 3-4 of them were taken out due to maybe too much information, or whatever you want to call it in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting read, how it parallels Genesis. It's very interesting, and it's very eye-opening, to say the least. And then going back to, what you said about 9/11, again, we spoke briefly before we started recording. I'd mentioned that this, 9/11 is our generation's JFK, and we really have to step up and make sure that the people who were involved in that ritual, and that's after so many years of researching, I mean, countless hours of research, it's very obvious to me that it was a ritual. But that we could maybe save for the other podcast. We're down to our last 4 minutes or so. First, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today. You've been an absolute tremendous guest. You've touched on so many subjects. Really, you've done just a tremendous job. Was there anything else that you hadn't touched on yet that you wanted to touch on briefly?
Um, I don't think so. There's so much to unpack, and I just hope that anybody going through this process, like myself, or maybe even like you yourself, George, when you first kind of started down this path, I hope that you keep your head up, because it is a very hard road to walk. But, you know, the the path is very narrow compared to the path that's very wide that leads to deception. And I myself, and I hope many others out there, would choose to walk the narrow path, even though it's a lot harder. It's challenging. It may label you as an outcast. You may even get shunned upon by some people, your coworkers, your family, whoever. But I want every listener to know that Yahshua Jesus, I don't know, that's just that's my thing. I like calling him by Yeshua, but Jesus loves you, and he is truly here for you, and he will, and I know this firsthand, he will help you through all of this, whether it be anxiety or hardship or whatever you're going through. I know it in my heart, and I have a feeling that some of your listeners know it by heart too, that he is there, and he is there for you. And it's sad with how many souls are being consumed nowadays by, you know, by all this stuff. I want to call it by a different word, but
Yeah, I know. I
but
gotcha.
yeah, it's sad, and it truly breaks my heart for all these people that are consumed with either, stuff that, truly does not matter in the grand scheme of things. And but they think in the moment being that, that consumes their life. So I hope for discernment for those people. I hope for Yahweh's love to consume their hearts, and just spread from them, because we have a good community here. We do. There's I'll never tell anybody false facts. I'll never I'll never I'll never spread anything that's like that. I want to spread the truth. Want to spread what Yeshua made, and I just want everybody to know that they are loved and cared for, and that to be on alert for deception. And a Bible verse that really stuck out to me was Ephesians 5:11. So if you wanna look that up, that's a good one. We're supposed to love God, and expose evil. And I think that's something that the United States, and maybe globally as a whole, we aren't doing a very good job of. We're not exposing evil enough. We're just living our cushy lives, and not worrying about a lot of things. We're just working our 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs, and Netflix and chill, or partying, or clubbing, or or whatever. But the true things that matter are God's love for you and family and friendship, and being grateful for every single day that you have here. So I think that's it.
You said it perfectly, and I think I should close with Ephesians 5:11 to 14 because it is absolutely spot on. It says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved are made manifested by the light. For whatsoever doth make manifest is light." Again, it says, "Awake, thou that sleep, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light." Really good. There you go, Ephesians 5:11 through 14. Well, listen, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've been playing email tag back and forth for a while, so it was finally nice to get a hold of you and just have a great conversation that I hopefully will resonate with the masses. And again, Kevin's email will be in the show description. I always put that at the very top so you don't have to go looking for it. Please reach out to Kevin, and I'm sure there's a lot of like-minded people out there that would like to pick your brain even further. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, George. I appreciate you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I love what you're doing here. It's awesome. I still can't believe that I found your podcast on Spotify, and I truly hope to meet you one day in person. If not, I'm absolutely sure that I'll meet you on the other side.
There you go. That's a guarantee, brother. Well, God bless you, and thank you to the listeners again for all your support. And again, the next podcast, if you're listening Wednesday night, the next podcast with Matthew should drop the following Sunday night, May 21st at 8 p.m. For Kevin, I'm George. God bless each and every one of you. Take care and have a good week.
T-Mobile has invested billions to light up America's largest 5G network, from big cities to small towns, including right here in yours. And great coverage is just the beginning. Right now, families and small businesses can save up to 20% versus AT&T and Verizon when they switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today.
Plan savings with 2 to 3 lines of T-Mobile Essentials versus comparable available plans. Plan features and taxes and fees may vary.
Hey, hon, we really need new phones.
T-Mobile will cover the cost of 4 amazing new iPhone 15s, and each line is only $25 a month.
New iPhone 15s? Best new year ever.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with auto-pay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without auto-pay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge applies. See T-Mobile.com.